throughout Digitas North America. He drives the integrated campaigns and strategies across display, mobile, social, just about every other platform. He does so for a number of the major brands that Digitas represents: American Express, Delta Airlines, Sprint, Zipcar, and many others. Please welcome David Carrel.
Great. Hello. Hey, thanks, Steve. Okay, well, thank you all for being here on the very desirable 4 p.m. Thursday spot. I think we have the rain to thank a little bit for some of our folks, too. But we have a great panel, and I think we're having a fun time. We decided beforehand that given our desirable spot, we were going to go out here and shake it up, have some fun, keep things short and interactive. And I'm going to let our panel introduce themselves Twitter style, 140 characters or less. But before I do that, I wanted to get a little bit information from you all. From a show of hands, how many folks here are on the client side? Looked like one. Is that what I saw? Yeah, it's hard to see here. Okay. How many people are on the, I'll just make it on the buy side. They're buying media. Okay, a little bit more. Yeah. How many are a vendor, a company that's selling something to advertiser agencies? Okay, there we go. Seems like the majority. And then I'll just throw folks in the middle. Agencies who are in the middle. Any folks from the agencies here? Looks like 1, 2. Okay, so highly skewed towards the vendor, the sell side, which is good, which is where most of our panel is. Okay, so why don't I just first let the panelists introduce themselves very, very brief and quickly.
I'm Dave Jakubowski, CEO at Aggregate Knowledge.
Adam Lehman, President at Lotame Solutions.
Sharona Sankar-King. I am Managing Partner and Practice Lead for North America MEC for Digital Analytics.
Chris Scoggins, GM of the digital business at Datalogix.
Eoin Townsend, Chief Strategy Officer for MediaMath.
Great, thank you guys. Now, I usually end panels this way, and this, I haven't told you guys about this because I was going to end here. But given that we're towards the end already of the day, I'm going to start here. Myth or reality? You guys can answer these questions, myth or reality. That's what you're limited to. You ready? Data is adding a lot of value today for marketers.
Myth.
Reality.
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 Awesome. Okay. Facebook is a great channel for acquisition-focused marketers.
Reality.
Myth.
Myth.
Reality.
Reality.
Nice. Okay, we'll come back to all these. Don't worry. Marketers are spending too much on search.
Reality.
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 Yeah.
Reality.
Reality. That's going to be the easy one.
Do we have anyone from Google here? Do we have the investor community here? Stocks dropping. Okay. Tumblr is going to be a huge profitable business.
Myth.
Reality.
Reality.
Myth.
Myth.
Okay. It's good, huh? Okay. Programmatic buying will be 50% of the display market in 2 years.
2 years.
Limited just to display.
Yes, right now display. Display, video, but not talking search or anything.
Reality.
Myth.
Myth.
In the U.S., reality.
Reality.
Okay. Remember your answers, everybody. Okay. 70% of the mobile inventory is unsold today.
Say it again.
Wait, say that again?
70% of mobile inventory is unsold today.
Reality.
Reality.
Not sure.
I don't know.
That was not the choices.
I say reality, but I think part of the problem is no one knows for sure.
I don't know. So I read that recently, but I went back to try to find the source, and I couldn't find it. Okay. Publishers will make money in mobile advertising.
Reality.
Yeah, reality.
Absolutely reality.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. All right. This is great. I actually like starting with this all together. And we'll dive into some more questions here.
I think I'm a little afraid of you now, Dave.
Yeah, I know. So, well, let's start with the value of data. So this one I remember well. I think it's the only one. We had 4 realities, 1 myth. So David, tell us why isn't data creating the value today?
Because very little of what's valuable about data is actually being used today. There are actually very few people harnessing it. There's a lot of emperor's new clothes between multiple parties in the ecosystem about using it to target, and what everybody ends up doing is just shifting credit around for the same sale from one person to the next, but no actual new sales are being created as a result of it. And that doesn't mean that that's happening because that's what data is limited to. That's just the pervasive nature of the model today, which is why I clarified.
So I'm going to go to Sharona in a second, but let me just follow up there. What should folks be doing to get the value then today?
Bringing the offline world into the online world. That's where most of the pockets of, by any good measure, 30% of sales or positive activities happen on the web. We have over-indexed on that 30%, and until we start to bring in the other 70%, we've kind of hit a pinnacle.
Okay. So I'm going to go to Chris in a second, but I've done that. I've bought a bunch of offline data, CRM, even prospect lists online. And when you start to target based on that, it doesn't work well. And I see the value. The magic is when you take offline and you combine it with the behavioral, digital aspects to create something new.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so you're saying that. Chris, can you just, the Datalogix background and company lives in that space.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thesis of our company. So we started the company 5 years ago with the whole notion that if you have a bunch of offline data, and specifically there's different kinds of offline data, we focus on offline transaction data. And really understanding, and there's certain industries. There's some industries where I think online data works really well, travel, financial services, because the loop is closed online. That's why search works really well for some industries. But the industries we focus on, big box retail, auto, and CPG, 99% of their transactions still occur offline. So you need an offline mechanism to measure. And the thesis was marketers want to spend money digitally, but they need a way to measure that digital impact offline. And so that kind of longer term, more complex closed loop is what we've built in the last 5 years. So it's hard to do, and we're just all scratching the surface on it as an industry, but it's absolutely where this is all going.
Sharona, I want to go back to the original question then. Just, is data adding a lot of value online? You said, yeah, you said reality. Talk specifically, where do you see that happening, and what type of data are we talking about?
Well, there's 2 ways to think about data. What's the data that you're using to develop insight and to do those big leaps, as I think Susan was saying in the last panel, is what's the pieces of data that you're going to use to help you make those leaps in understanding the consumer experience or your customer's experience, right? Then you've got the other type of data that you need to use to understand your performance and how to optimize that performance. So there's a very different usage of the data, and I feel like on both sides of the fence, it's being under-leveraged. So on one side, from an optimization standpoint, it's being under-leveraged because of the data connectivity. We're not capturing everything and being able to connect all those pieces of data to be able to fully leverage it yet. Right, we're getting there as an industry. But from the insight and even utilizing your own data that's within your own 4 walls, I think that that's still being under-leveraged for drawing insights.
Okay. Let's step back for a second too and look at the ecosystem. A bunch of us were at the Luma conference yesterday, and we were talking about how Terry jumped out with all his logos. He's the logo man. And I even remember back seeing media plans years ago. It was just a bunch of logos, and many times it is still today. And if we think about the Lumascapes, but more specifically the groups, the categories, who is capturing the value today of the data on that ecosystem? So like what companies, Datalogix, and then what types of data, CRM, behavioral, retargeting, transactional, what types of data do you think is adding value to folks? So it's kind of a 2-part question. Start down on the end there with Ian.
Well, look, I actually think, first of all, limiting to one data source is doing better than another data source is actually the wrong way to look at it. It's limited, right? It's about what's the right data source for that client or that person or what they're trying to accomplish. In some cases, in the retail big box world, it is the offline transactional data that is very powerful. But even that is leveraged by when you put it in and in conjunction with the other data and make smart decisions on it. I think people are using the data, so the ones who realize that data alone doesn't work, right? Like I can send tons of beautiful spreadsheets and graphs around and share it, but data without action is the scenarios where it really doesn't work. So I think where the people who are leveraging the best out of data now in that ecosystem are the ones who are going to be able to tie data with action. I mean, obviously, I'm sitting in a spot. I'm one of the logos on the chart, so it's going to be hard for me not to say it. But it's the people that is not just a standalone, I just look at data every day. It's the ones who look at it and say, I look at the whole ecosystem, figure out what's the best choice, and bring it together. Those are the ones who are going to capture the best.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think today, advertisers are extracting most of the rents, if you will, from the value chain. Because between RTB and data, the pie of advertising isn't growing that much. The global pie of advertising grows roughly with GDP. And so there's this massive shift to digital. And then within that piece of the pie, I think the amount of technology and data that the advertiser, the buy side has relative to the sell side, I think to date, over the last like 5 to 8 years, I think most of the value has been extracted by the buy side. Like people are just able to reach people much cheaper than they were in the past.
What about within the Loomscape map, or within there's a lot of vendors, people selling things here? That's a good point. I hadn't thought about it like that. I like to think that advertisers are getting a better value today than 10 years ago. But where do you think, what companies, like, example would be Google, obviously collects a lot of money in the ecosystem. Who else is kind of getting money there? This is for everybody.
Well, I'll jump in. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm going to be a little contrarian with the question, just in that, going back to what Chris was saying, I actually do think the marketers themselves are extracting the most value. Once you get past that, it's really not the ad tech companies themselves. We do a lot of work on the supply side. And large publishers who are able to bring together unique strands of data, like Weather Company is one of our clients, mapping together the rain we saw earlier with purchase behavior, and then being able to package and monetize that, or a health provider selling at enormous CPMs when they get super targeted as they can with segments. Inside ad tech, though, just to answer the question, the folks who are still on the media delivery side seem to be commanding huge amounts of revenue. And
DSPs, be clear?
Networks turn DSPs.
Networks.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just to kind of add to that a little bit, but to kind of put a non-self-serving spin on it, I don't know how we could really sit up here. Look, there are examples of little pockets of good things that are happening all over the place, but if you're talking about as an ecosystem and as in an industry, it's a fool's errand to say that the publishers are getting benefit from it, or that the advertisers are getting benefit. It's flat out not true. The economics they're certainly not going to Yahoo. They're going to Google, and they're going to Google, and they're going to a bunch of other intermediaries who all put together, which are the ad networks, which is kind of trying what you were getting at, who are arbitraging it, and all of them added together aren't getting as much value as Google. So if you're going to talk about where it is, right now it all sits with Google, and it all sits with Google because they're the only ones who have put together the full picture on the back end and know how to play the game against the advertiser, to be perfectly candid. And so I think that the movement that you're seeing is the guys with the money, they have lots of bullets and no guns. Google's got guns and bullets. And so you're seeing the advertiser community, largely through the agencies, starting to arm themselves. So we're just seeing the first cracks of a movement to have a little bit more balance in it. But if you just look at all the dollars, there's one, maybe two companies, and the second company would be Facebook.
Okay. We have we all know it's an alphabet soup out there, but we have a few guys up here that run, or senior folks at DMP, data management platforms. And I want to hear from each one of you what a data management platform is. We'll start with, just right here, Mr. Jakubowski.
As it's been bastardized on the Luma slide, I actually have no idea. I can tell you.
To you.
To me, data management is a series of features. It's not a company. It's not a category. It's a series of features about the ingestion of data and then the movement of that data out into other places. You combine solid inputs and solid outputs with predictive analytics. We do a whole bunch of work around attribution modeling, and we call that layer intelligence. But there's plenty of other applications for the ingestion of data and the output of data for use for media buying or arbitrage or whatever it is. And it's a suite of features like a tag server that almost everybody who plays in the system is going to need a suite of features around that. And if you want to call that suite of features a DMP, so be it. I tend to run from the word or the acronym.
Okay. What about Adam?
Yeah, not so dissimilar, but for us it's pretty simple. Collect, segment, activate. Those are the three things. To Dave J's point, collection means pulling data from any number of different data sources and streams. And on the activation side, where I think the Lumascape is too reductive and the way we often think about it may be too small, activation is not just about audience targeting for online advertising. It can be around dynamic content delivery and decisioning. At that level, it can be around promotions and e-commerce. We're even looking at applications that relate to customer service and call centers. So, I think the key in thinking about the definition of a DMP is the breadth. And, every enterprise over time will have a control center data dashboard.
What's the parallel in the current enterprise world? SAP? I mean, if you talk about the way you were talking about it, how would you compare it?
Yeah, I think that's a fair analogy.
Sharona, we'll go to Sharona's on the agency side, so
yeah,
good
I'm
perspective.
on the agency side, so I have and I also started off in the database marketing and direct mail world. So when I think of DMPs, it really reminds me of, it's really to me the same thing, it's just in the digital space, right? We're pulling together different types of data. I mean, even the data providers are the similar data providers. You got Axiom, Experian, all those different types of data providers that are compiling the data and selling the data. So we're using, these data sources aren't necessarily new, they're just transposed into the digital space or transferred into the digital space. And so database marketing and what we used to do 18 years ago, right, when I started in the business, is to segment, target, use that data, and where you're extracting the value from that data really depends on what you're trying to deliver as far as your end goal, right? So at the end of the day, different types of data are important, but what the DMP to me is, it's the same as back in the day where you're trying to figure out what are those right pieces of data that are tied to your end KPI or metric that you're trying to drive and closing that loop within the database.
Yeah, what's interesting is kind of the controversial statement we make a lot is everyone now is a direct marketer. Like the notion of brand marketing and direct response as two different things is just gone. And so you can take, brand marketing used to be, I would buy media because it's a proxy of the demographics that tune into that media or read that media. That was great, that's all they had. Now, as more and more things become addressable digitally, you can take direct marketing tactics that have worked for 40 years and are really well understood and very based in science, and you can apply them at a much lower cost digitally. And that's a huge win to the marketers. That's why I think the marketers extract more value.
So were you saying that everybody's a direct marketer?
In the digital space, I
in
feel that's
a direct market. So even like if so for we work, again, the brands we work with, auto and CPG, these are thought of as brand marketers, right? But the way they think and the way they work, at least the way they work with us, is they're thinking much more like a catalog marketer or a direct marketer, or like a Geico in the past. It's really interesting to watch these worlds collide.
I mean, I worked on auto and CPG in the past, but there's still, I feel like there's still a big buy of being, I want to be associated with the voice. I want to be with the, cross-channel. Nice. I don't want to just target conquest in-market camera users. Right. I want to be associated with American Idol, The Voice, because it's a proxy for my brand. Are you saying
no? What I'm saying is that will absolutely continue, but it'll be interesting to see what people pay for that going forward when they really understand. There's still a halo effect around a lot of this stuff that it's not clear if the return. If you start to think like a direct marketer and you think in terms of ROI, and now this stuff all actually becomes measurable for the first time, you can actually see if Purina spends $10 million on a campaign, they can actually track offline for the next 3, 6, 9 months. How much did that actually move with a really well-built test and control group? It's really interesting how those two worlds
So you're
collide.
Seeing measurement become a bigger part of the brand world, which may make the brand marketers
which then understands what audience
money.
To buy. So you go from media planning and media buying to audience buying and audience planning. And so who you're getting in front of becomes
I'm going to jump in here, hold on. Because I feel like audience planning is very different from context planning. This American Idol.
I think you still...
I mean, I see what you're saying. I agree that you can buy audiences.
Both. I think the difference is you're able to measure the impact of these things now. And so if it is working and you want to be associated, you want to still be able to measure that. Did it have an impact? Is it good to be associated with that? Am I going to check and see how people are reacting, for instance, how my brand is associated on Twitter, right? When you're doing these things, you want to monitor that and see, is there a positive impact for my brand in doing that, right? So I think also to note is that that a lot of the techniques that we're using to measure and understand these things are similar to the techniques from a statistical, given my background as a statistician, are very similar, or some of them are the exact same types of ways that we built models to be able to predict in this space, to be able to measure in this space. And so it's really interesting to see how we're just taking, like you said, stuff that's been around for 20 years for at least the modeling side, because I didn't used to model back 40 years ago. But a lot of the same things that have been done for a very long time are now just being applied to the digital space. But I think that there's still value in having a contextual construct in how you're going after different types of partnerships.
My main point was just these two worlds used to be quite discrete. And they're just very much converging. And it's causing a ton of people to rethink how they approach things. It's very interesting.
No, I see that too.
Place to play.
Okay. What about you, Ian?
So look, the argument about TV and branding is like where the cool kids play, right? I want to be brand, so I want to be one of the cool kids, right? The reality is that everything should be measurable, right? At the end of the day, even the brand, when people talk about it as like measurable brand, like it has to be measurable. And what you're looking at is actually, I think you've got a halo effect around TV, for example. Everyone talks about brand and TV together. But if you actually look at that market's fragmented. There's no longer 3 stations anymore that command, huge audiences. It's now broken apart. Everything we do from this point on is going to be about being measurable, no matter what platform we end up being on. Mobile, display, TV, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk Facebook. 25% of all display impressions. Huge inventory, obviously. Most of you talked about it as being a good value or a good place for acquisition focused. And I know Facebook has worked hard to kind of create that, hey, we're effective. Their reason for buying Atlas was around measurement. They talk on their conference calls that we help people convert. When GM announced a year ago that it didn't work, it was a big hit to them, obviously. Can you guys talk a little bit, and I'll just leave it open for whoever, talk a little about why you think it's a good place for acquisition-focused marketing on Facebook, and any, I know Datalogix is doing, I think, some online to offline matches with them to kind of see what you're seeing and how the data there is being valuable?
Sure.
Any of us can go?
Yeah,
I mean,
I'll leave it open.
The FBX side. So as everyone knows, we were an FBX partner for Facebook. And I think it's funny when people talked about FBX, they talked about it as very much a retargeting engine, right? They said, oh, they're just going to do retargeting.
Right.
The reality is once we put it into the system, when we treated it like a new source, right, like a new opportunity and added the data to it, it became just as powerful for acquisition marketing, right? It became just, like it wasn't just, we looked at it from the point of view of saying, oh, it's not just about reach, oh, I have my cookie match, and way to go. There's actually ways to build out into the acquisition marketing.
When you say acquisition, are you meaning like prospecting, not just retargeting?
Not just retargeting. You actually extend it out to the prospecting modeling, and you can actually build out really great, and we found fantastic results. So for me, it's actually concrete. When you ask me, does it work? My answer is yes, because again, to what we've all been talking about, it's measurable, right? And we started to see that.
And just quickly on that, how are you measuring online on that side?
We do both. We have an attribution engine, so we can do online and offline, both of those pieces.
And Chris, why don't you take this one too, just given the
so
big partnership?
Yeah, it's been a great opportunity for us over the last 2 years. So we spent about a year and a half building for auto and CPG a really robust measurement platform that Facebook's using to really show how Facebook, the partner categories and the custom audiences on Facebook, so this is not FBX, this is the kind of direct buys into Facebook, how that works for those verticals, which are historically brand advertisers but want to measure the impact because they're writing very large checks. Thinking a lot about it as shifting TV dollars and other kind of big brand media dollars to Facebook because the audience targeting is so accurate and rich and scaled. One of the main problems we've had in the open web around behavioral targeting is scale, right? And so Facebook really solves that problem to a large extent. When you can reach 80% of US households very accurately, and you can reach people, these 5 million people are in the market for diapers because we know that because they just had a baby. I mean, these 6 million people buy a lot of Greek yogurt, right? So it's just incredibly accurate targeting, and then you can then measure it and the long-term impact of that. It's powerful. And then on the FBX side, we don't do as much there, but I know for a fact, like especially in the news feed, incredible ROI on that for people that are playing there right now.
Just to kind of dive, we have a big deal like Datalogix where they give us unique access to the user base for measurement. We're one of 2 companies that they allow to do that. And what we're able to see is a very clear pattern that, that the phenomenon that Facebook has created with the consumer in its B2C initiatives, where it's become this just pervasive communication vehicle, whatever it is that you want to call social, that's translating through to marketing. Why? Because they're this new category that clearly exists in the purchase funnel that's never existed before, called conversations. And there are lots of activities going on that are much, much further up the funnel that when you take Facebook out of the marketing equation and you A/B it out, you sell less stuff. In fact, overall, including online, including offline, marketing across lots of different categories, and for any one advertiser it can be different, but when you look at as a whole, we see when Facebook is present as part of the media mix, the performance is about 24% better. And it's very specifically tied to that layer of conversation and the fact that they reach more people that no other channel reaches. You can't get them by any combination of Yahoo, AOL, MSN. You can't go to the big places and get the same kind of reach. And so if you don't have Facebook in the equation, you're not going to reach as many people. So it just becomes then just a one-to-one all the way down to the results for the advertiser.
Okay. Let's talk for a second. Let's geek out for 1 second. I know it's late. Data quality. And what's the biggest? And if we can do this in one word, that would be fantastic. But I don't know. I know if that's possible. Data quality. When people talk about data quality, let's keep it limited to third party if we can. What should we know? Like, what do I need to know that I don't know today?
That the data is irrelevant. That the cookie is the key when you're talking only about third party.
Yeah, third party.
My one word would be methodology.
All right, explain.
Well, now you got more than one. Explaining meaning data is collected and categorized in incredibly different ways by players in the market. And so the difference between someone on a design page to design the car and getting a referral for a car dealer is very different than someone looking at a picture of a Maserati. Now, they could both end up in a purchase and tender audience for auto and even for that vehicle. And the difference is not only in terms of then what that data point is, but how it's likely to perform. So methodology, understanding, as people are investing in these segments, who they're working with and how they're going about collection and categorization.
I actually agree absolutely with that, it's really about understanding the methodology that's applied to the collection of the data, but then also how is that data connected as well, and what's the methodology for connecting different data pieces. And so there's really not much I can add to that.
The source of the data, the methodology of how, because most of the time we're modeling data, right? So how are the models actually built, and the source of the inputs to those models? And then David's exactly right, the cookie, and the kind of how is that then appended to a cookie? Because you're, at the end of the day, at least today, most people are targeting a cookie. So how did that come about? And it's the confluence, I think, of all three of those.
I would agree. I mean, my one word would be spotty. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the word if we're all going to honestly look at it. We find great hits. There's a lot of trash there, right? The key is how you manage to it, and the cookie is, right? At the end of the day, we all target the cookie at the end of the day.
Okay. Talk Tumblr for a second. 4 out of 5 dentists, 4 out of 5 of you guys, I think, said it was that Tumblr will be a very huge and profitable business. Can a few elaborate on that, just from what do you think it's going to add to, I guess, Yahoo at this point, but why it'll be so huge and profitable?
I said the opposite, so no, I can't do that.
All right, I'm going from the most important analytic source you can look at, which is your kids. So I look at my kids, and in terms of the way they experience interactive right now, Tumblr is it, not only as a property, but also the mode of interaction. So to me, even with all the skeptics and cynics, I don't see any reason why this can't continue to grow into a really large property. And then it's just about monetization, which Facebook has proven you can do if you have the scale.
But Yahoo hasn't.
Yahoo Yahoo was around when, I don't know about you, but when I was starting out in business, it's a different epic, it's a different type of property. It's not defined by, the visual. It's not more focused in the way. Anyway, I feel like it's fundamentally different.
If your stock portfolio gets paid on 5 years ago, God bless you, teach me that trick, but mine doesn't. Mine gets paid on tomorrow's stock price. Yahoo has one of the fundamentally the strongest audiences anywhere out there. We see it time and time again. They've watered the inventory down to a point that marketers have kind of figured out where it fits and how to maximize that. The arbitrage players have figured out how to make more money off of it than Yahoo has, and this is just going to add more inventory. They don't have an inventory problem. They have a monetization on a per user basis problem, and if they figured that problem out, then Tumblr would be wildly successful. But until they figure that out, they can just keep adding more Tumblrs, newspapers, next silly set of inventory. It's not going to help them. You don't see Facebook running around trying to add more inventory.
No, they got a lot. Chris, what do you think?
I think to the extent that this helps Yahoo become a bigger player in mobile, that will be huge for them. I'm not sure it will. And I'm kind of just looking at, I realize this is a little unfair to do because there's a new regime over there now, but historically Yahoo has not been the best at buying companies and maximizing their value. I'll just kind of leave it at that.
I think it's the opposite. Yahoo has been spectacularly brilliant at buying companies, right? If you look at their list of the choices they made.
And then doing what?
Yes, and that's the next question. Like, I'm a huge fan of Yahoo, and I want them to be successful. I'm right on the same page, right? I think they're amazing. I think they have a huge opportunity, and they have a new regime. So the hope here, I think, for everyone in this group is that the new regime takes it, but it's all about execution.
All right, well, let's talk mobile, because I feel like mobile gets talked a lot. It's a huge opportunity. Yahoo's putting a lot of money behind it. From my perspective, there's so much inventory out there. It's pretty cheap on the agency side when we go to buy it. There's a lot of different targeting mechanisms, but people aren't able to really use that much of other data. And I wonder, data like offline data. We've talked to several companies. How do you match up desktop and mobile? And there's fingerprinting, device ID. But it seems like where is the right use of data from a mobile perspective? Like how can we, if we were advising our clients here, hey, for mobile, the type of data you want to use is X, what would your advice be?
All right, I'll jump in. I think there are two pieces. If it's for tomorrow, it's a campaign they want to start executing, I think look for players who have mobile native data, so you don't have the issue of translation from across platforms. And there are probably some good partners out there who can do that. I think.
What do you mean by mobile native?
Meaning, entities out there, whether they're mobile publishers or mobile ad networks, who are collecting data on mobile, using that data to then create audiences, or if they're optimizing, other types of segments and targeting against that. The bigger answer for me is I think we're probably still 2 to 3 years away from really having the maturity around data flow and mapping across platforms to really get value.
If you need data to make your mobile successful tomorrow, don't bother. Right? Don't bother. It's as simple as that. Mobile right now is a very strong contextual pull. There's no evidence that the data has any meaningful draw. It's a nice place actually for brands who kind of need to reach everyone. If you look at like the telco players, the beverage industry, like those kinds of things do very, very well because they can do interesting things from a contextual standpoint in-app, across mobile web. But if you're looking at, I have a refined niche market that I need to use that data for, I think in the future, I think it's got a very strong potential for local, CRM, and then wide brand association, although heavily measured. I didn't kind of jump in on that because I think it was everybody was strong on that, but I think that's where it will go. But I think there's no evidence that the data has panned out in any way at scale for anything other than those categories.
Let me ask this too. I know we have a lot of the sell side companies, vendors in here, and you have a lot of the very CEO and senior folks running companies. How much are you investing of your R&D investment budgets in a percentage basis into mobile itself, building out mobile channel, mobile capability, given that there's a lot of opportunity and mobile does have certain challenges. If you could kind of give a rough sense, starting with Eoin, what you think? So
for people who follow MediaMath, you know that we acquired a mobile company late last year. So we have a ton of focus in the mobile. And we look at it not just mobile. I mean, mobile, you talk about mobile, the data problem, but we also have mobile, the workflow problem, mobile, the reporting problem. The issue is, and we talk about how many logos are on our blinking chart, it actually creates that issue, right? Someone feels that mobile's different than, right, display is different than social, all these kind of concepts that is different. It's actually the same workflow for most of them, right? And it's about looking at the person holistically. So for us, we have a huge dedication from an engineering point of mobile. We're looking at it not just from the point of view of data, but looking at it from the point of view of holistically, how do we make mobile buying an integrated part of that? Because the reality is people don't have 8 cars at their home, right? People buy one car to solve a problem, right? That's the right car for them. And and if you look at enterprise, we talk a lot about enterprise software, right? Enterprise software is about solving all those problems for people and being the hub, not about looking at little things. So mobile for us is important.
So I have a little bit different point of view maybe than some of the others on the panel, but I think mobile to date has been really good for mobile consumables like gaming and app downloads. Mobile is actually awesome. It's the right place to advertise. I actually think mobile is going to be a godsend to publishers. I think publishers that have registered users, I think mobile is going to be the way they recapture a lot of the rents that had been going to the marketers, because companies like LinkedIn, Pandora, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, possibly, where you log in to use the service. Now you've got an identity platform, and there's about 10 to 15 of these companies that have huge scaled audiences. So they can actually do audience-based targeting and extract a lot of money from brand advertisers that still want to measure. So I actually think mobile is going to be this, I don't know about mobile ad networks and kind of the mid-tail and long tail, but I think for like 10 to 15 of the big publishers that have big registered user bases that can append data to those known users, I think mobile could be really interesting in 5 years.
Or like a New York Times. Where you have
or New York Times,
wall.
right.
And so the idea, Chris, what you're saying is they're going to charge a higher CPM?
I think so. Yeah, that's yeah.
I would.
They'll have the data at the end of the day.
I think the way clients are looking at it, since I'm very driven by what our client demand is around mobile, right? So I think their perspective is, this is just another place for me to reach people when they are in a context, right? So I think that we have to crack the nut on mobile and how we're going to track mobile and reconcile it. And at the end of the day, it's not here yet, obviously, but the demand is there on the client side. And because of that, there are industries where it's critically important for them to understand mobile. For instance, one of our clients, it's around understanding moviegoers, right? And so that's in the context, a lot of people don't figure out what movie they want to go to until they're standing outside of the movie theater, and they're using, a lot more people are now buying their tickets online through some mobile app. So it's critically important to that particular business, and so there's many myriads of examples around that. So that's
okay. We only have a couple minutes left, and I want to get to two final questions. And not to sound like a downer, but what are the downsides of attribution, of multi-touch attribution? If any, what are the downsides to multi-touch attribution? I mean, it's a huge buzzword. I'm in the agency. We talk about it. Talks well. Clients say they want it. They don't always use it. So I'm just trying to get from your perspective, are there any downsides?
Beware of civil. Yeah.
Oh, can I take this question? Because I've been building digital attribution models for 10 years now, before any of the vendors in the space have actually probably thought about doing digital attribution. And so the downside is if you don't know what it is that you're trying to get out of it and what your end goal is, you need to know what you're driving towards in order for it to work for you, right? And sometimes our clients have multiple goals, right? And so you have to have multiple types of models to drive towards those goals. The other thing is what's the business question you're really trying to answer, right? I was talking about insight versus optimization. If it's optimization, yeah, an attribution solution that's built in, very algorithmic, programmatic is going to work really well for you from an optimization standpoint. But if you're really trying to understand the value of each and every single of your touch point and how that, because I call it full pathway attribution, not multi-touch attribution, because I really want to understand that pathway from the top of the funnel all the way down to the conversion, whether it's happening online or offline. And so I need to understand what's my offline influences into those touch points. Where was it initiated, and knowing that value, what's the role in the different partners that are along the way in that path to create that full customer experience that I'm trying to drive, and at the end of the day, get a sale.
Okay.
I think she nailed it.
Okay. All right. We only have a couple seconds left, but I have one final question. What are you guys excited about? What's next? I mean, one of the things I love about our industry, it's exciting, it changes fast. I feel like you can do a lot of different things. What are you excited about? What's next in the next 12-month time period? Why don't we start right in the middle? Adam.
I'm most excited about one of the topics we talked about, which is cross-platform, and really getting the whole industry to mature to where we can start to connect not only data, media, analytics, everything, because it is where our clients are going, marketers and publishers.
I'm excited about all of the opportunities to connect different pieces of data together that is allowing us just really to, even in the strategic realm of things, not necessarily just in the optimization realm of things. And there's just so many insights that we're able to draw now because of the connectivity of the data that really do drive our marketing and media plans.
Similar, I'm very excited about audience targeting in terms of like really defining an audience and saying I want to reach them in mobile, in social, in display, and in video over the next 90 days. And just having that really tight and then measurable is just, that's really cool.
So for me, it's the convergence. To take a word, actually, a buzzword from years ago and bring it back, I think this is a year where a lot of us all grow up and start looking at it from the point of view of an integrated solution. We actually try to solve the problem on multiple facets, not just, I'm going to solve X and that's all I'm going to do. I think that type of approach is going to make this a very exciting year.
So my self-serving answer is measurement. And just that measurement's going to expose, all these questions. Should I work with one DSP or two DSPs? Path analysis, all these questions, measurement can show the light on it. My more interesting answer that's not so self-serving is the fight that's about to erupt between Facebook and Google.
I know that you're all compelled to get out there while there's still a break in the rain. Does anyone have any final questions for our panel? Yep.
James Lee, I work for investment firm COSA. First question to MediaMath. Can you specify a little bit when you use FBX in general, what kind of performance you're able to garner versus other retargeting platforms? And how different are the cookies in FBX versus other platforms in general? And also for Datalogix, can you be specifically, once again, this is a Facebook question, what kind of ROIs are you able to get granted as early testing for your CPG and your auto customers, and what do you benchmark against? Thanks.
Is there high frequency trading going on based on this answer?
We both go. I mean, look, I will say to a fault that I'm honest in the sense that I don't have these numbers off the top of my head. I know there are multiple times what we see from a retargeting point of view. The performance has been multiples, not just small percentage points, against what we've seen in retargeting in other environments. Again, though, let's all be very honest. It's a new thing. It's a new inventory source that's brought in, so you're always going to have that pop. But so far, we've seen spectacular performance multiple times, and I think you're going to say the same.
So we've done now, I think, 120 studies in the last 16, 18 months. And the average ROI is somewhere between 3 and 4 to 1. So every dollar I spend on the campaign, I get about $3 to $4 of incremental spend offline, and that's in CPG. Auto, we're still, I don't have enough data to, we've only done about 15, 20 of these, so I don't have enough data to give you an answer that's meaningful, but I think CPG is. And then how it's being compared is we've done probably off Facebook another couple hundred of these. So we're just getting the fact, we're building kind of a norms database where we start to understand how these fit in. But I mean, the impact on Facebook has been quite, it's quite effective because it's scaled and it's accurate, unlike, in the cookie world where it's a lot harder to reach that kind of scale.
And the cookies are a lot more durable. Average cookie persistence is more like in the 80 percentile range versus the internet as a whole is more like 30. Our ROI numbers are similar to theirs that we have on raw sales. It has about a 24% increase across about 500 different campaigns.
David, panel, thank you very much for rounding out the afternoon. I appreciate it. Nice job.